Hey, what's up everybody? 3D Theory here. It is still August 11th, and this is vlog number 32. I am out of town, so I filmed all these intros for today and tomorrow on the same day, and we're gonna just continue with the 3D modeling segment of the Stealth TV tray. I'll see you guys in the computer. So I think the next logical step would be to go ahead and create this medium undertable bar, and I'm going to go ahead and actually look at the measurements for this, and it looks like it's 251 millimeters here for this bar here. So I know it's going to differ based off of our designs here, but let's start with the basic measurements here, and we're going to call that a depth of 251, and most definitely it's going to have to be shorter. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead in the real world and measure from the edge of the table to where that starts and see what measurements I get, and we'll adjust the size of this accordingly. All right, so it's about 34 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that measuring cube and create it to be 34 millimeters. And that's how we know what size I'm going to make my bar here. But I need it over here in the top view. Okay, I don't need the grid. I'm going to vertex snap the orientation so then I can bring this up and see how small I need to make my bar here. Now I can just scale in both directions using this scale tool in the Z, and that's looking almost there. All right, I think that's looking good. I did 3705, but those last two numbers disappear. And we're looking pretty spot on there. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to see how far this sidebar is from the edge of the table, and we'll know where to place it there. And I never did get the width of this, so I'm going to go ahead and get the width of that. It looks to be square, so it's 19.5 in its width. There you go. And likewise 19.5. Okay, and now to see the distance from the edge of the table to that support bar, it is the same at 34 millimeters. So this was 34, that's correct. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring it to this edge and bring this over to this corner and bring it over. There you have it. So that's looking as it should. I'm going to create a center line here, as you would know how I would create it, which is just grabbing the edge ring utilities to edge ring and split. And the reason why it's not going across is because Maya doesn't create edge loops in areas where there are n-gons, and this face here is an n-gon. It's not a quad face, which means it has 4 vertices. In fact, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a 8-edged piece of geometry, which means 8 vertices. It's not a quad. So we gotta turn these into quads to be able to get edge loops. But I'll just connect this myself with the multi-cut tool for now. I'm gonna try to explain some quirks with Maya as we go along. So I'm gonna throw in a little bit of information here and there to kind of explain why Maya is doing what it does. So I just vertex snap this down at the bottom as it should be, and I'm gonna hide this measuring cube. And the reason why I created this, as a matter of fact, let's create a center line across as well, but again we can't, so we're gonna create it on the edges. I'm gonna go over to my multi-cut tool. This is our most recent tool that we used, so it's right there. I'm going to go to top view and bring this on over. Perfect. So now we have multiple faces with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges. Still, this isn't a quad, meaning 4 edges. I keep saying edges, but we can say vertices, because each corner here has a vertice and there's 5. But we'll leave that for now. And the reason why I created this, I'm going to turn on wireframe, on shaded, just so I have a place to put the orientation so that I can duplicate it over to X. But we don't need to do that right now, I realize, because we can do it later once it's done. And so I'm going to go ahead and start creating this shape. Since this is done in the meantime, I'm going to put it in a layer. I'm first going to call this measuring cube because that's where our measuring cube is at. And here's a tabletop. Okay, I can leave that as a reference layer so that I can't touch it by just clicking here and making sure it's on R. So it's there, but you can't touch it. Now, to get this cool shape that I want, I'm going to have to grab these edges and bevel it. And that's looking pretty decent, but I feel like in my design here, it's smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a tad bit smaller. That's looking pretty good, but I do want to make it a tad bit smaller. There you go. All right. So that's looking pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that drawing of mine again and see how it's holding up to the design. All right. So now I want to create that cool design in the center that we have. So there's a couple of ways we can get this design here. Now I'm going to show you the way I'm going to go about doing it. So I'm going to grab the face here and just simply extrude. And instead of using this tool here, I'm going to switch over to scale, and I'm going to scale in all directions. And as you can see, it's going to scale unevenly, so I got to eyeball that. How's that holding up? That's pretty close, but let's make it a little smaller here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the edges to be about the same. Let's take a look. All right, that's looking pretty cool. It's about where I want it to be. And I'm going to just bring this out like that. How far? Just to be able to get those cool edges right there. And as a matter of fact, I want to be smart here and just work on one side. So I'm going to create an edge ring and split. And the reason why it's not going across again is because there's an end gone here and here on this side. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Now to get that cool design that I got going on over here, where we do have this face here, but just one edge, we got to tweak the model here a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click the vertex here and vertex snap it over to this other vertex right above it. I'm going to grab both, shift right mouse button, merge vertices to center. Now that should just be one. Yep, it is. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that edge. Now we got this interesting design going on over here that looks really cool and edgy. But I do want to fix this look over here. There's something about this that I'm not quite liking, because this edge comes at a corner, then it turns, and then it has this hard turn there. That's really not what I was going for. So I'm going to try to make it straight like that, and maybe bring this entire thing up so that it looks a little equal. And this angle feels a little bit harsh, so I'm going to grab these verts and just bring it over. There you go. That looks a lot better. Again, I feel like I'm getting some sort of an angle right here. It's real subtle. Now to get that edge the way I want it to look, I'm going to grab this face and bring it over like that. And because it feels like it's getting a little thin here compared to this side, I'm going to grab that edge and just widen it out a bit. There you have it. That's looking good. And I feel like the geometry is able to hold itself better now here without having a huge edge showing up. So that's looking good. That's the way I want it to look. And it's very close to what we've got going on in our design. So now that that's ready, and this is already in the center, its orientation, I'm going to go ahead and scale it in Z, duplicate special. I'm going to reset this. And remember, the duplicate special here is X, Y, and Z. So it's X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to go and create a duplicate in Z. And to combine these as one, you have to go to Mesh, Combine. But still, they're two separate objects. So you just got to do one more function beyond that. And I'll show you by making the edges that are not connected highlighted. And we want to do display, polygon, custom polygon display. And just to show you what I did there, in the options box, you just turn this to 8 and check on bordered edges and click apply. And in that way, you'll see this highlighted edge showing that these edges are not connected. So I'm going to go to vertice mode, select all those verts, because these are basically, this is literally 2 vertices on one. And to show you, I'm going to go to heads up display here and do poly count on. And over here, you'll see all of our information. So if I go ahead and select this vert, and I'll just show you with this one. Over here, you're going to see in the verts as 2, because there's one on top of each other. From the right side and the left side, there are 2 verts sitting on top of each other. So I'm going to grab those, and I'm going to do merge vertices with the threshold very low, because they're sitting right on top of each other. If they were further apart from each other, you could increase the threshold, and it would just bring those together. But nonetheless, this is looking good. The back, I'm just going to leave it flat. I'm going to bring that orientation back to the center and duplicate in X. So I got to go back, reset the tool, and duplicate special. There you go. When you click duplicate special, it closes the dialog box, but right next to it, here, let me show you. If you click duplicate special, it closes the dialog box. But if you click apply, it'll apply the function, but keep this dialog box open. We don't need that. So that's actually looking pretty cool, if I say so myself so far. And what do we want to design next? There's 2 pieces of wood here. So we use the same design for those 2 pieces of wood, but they are smaller. So let me go ahead and get the measurements for those. And I think I called this metal bar wood because that little metal bar is connected to them. So it's these pieces of wood here. And that's 125 millimeters. So let's get that at 125 millimeters. All right, so I'm going to bring back my measuring cube, and I'm going to put this at a width of 125 millimeters. And these are kind of large, so I'm going to put them at 20, just so I can measure it easier for no particular reason. I'm going to go over here in my front view. I'm going to modify center this pivot so that then I can snap it to the center. I'm going to grab one of these guys, click Control D to duplicate, and I'm also going to center this pivot, modify center pivot, and let's rotate this 90 degrees. And since we already have it where we want to have it, in terms of how, in terms of the y-axis here, I'm just going to click V in the X and snap it there. But again, we need it to be about this big. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, delete one side. I'm just going to do this very quickly without explaining it. Snap it there, duplicate special in X. And since we rotated it, it's going to not translate that correctly. So if I show you here, duplicate special in X, apply, it didn't do it. It did it in its old orientation. That's because I rotated it in Y. And so it's always good to modify freeze transformations, edit, delete by type, history here, and then it'll work. I know, Maya's got a whole lot of quirks, a whole lot of personality traits, if you will. But nonetheless, I'm going to combine these as one. And I'm going to select those center vertices and merge. Now we've got one piece of geometry in the center. And it looks like these pieces here are a little bit closer than these would be. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and take a measurement out here in the real world. All right, so from this edge to where that wood starts is about 20 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and create a 20 millimeter cube here for the measuring cube. And I'm going to vertex snap this to this edge here so that I can bring it over accurately. And that's a 20 millimeter distance. And likewise, I'm going to go over here to the top view, and wherever this begins, I will just bring it to the front like that. I'll just bring it over to where that 20 millimeter mark is. And there you have it. I'm going to hide this measuring cube, bring this orientation over to the center, modify, freeze transformations, edit, delete by type, history. And I'm just going to scale this over in Z. So duplicate special options and scale that in Z. There you have it. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing for all of them. Modify, freeze transformations, edit, delete by type, history. So we just have a cleaned out history. This is where our history is. So let's see if I did the same for the table. No. So you see all the history here, which you can access any of the tweaks that I made in the past or any of the commands I ran on it and adjust. So you have a history in this stack where you can go back and adjust. So it's non-destructive. But I do want to freeze the transformations, edit, delete by type, history, because I don't need to do anything of that nature right now. So I'm going to turn off wireframe, see how this is looking. That's looking pretty cool. I like that a lot. And there's one other thing that I noticed actually. Because I expanded this by this much, this is looking too wide. So I'm going to take a look at how wide those were again, and I'm going to adjust it as needed. So the width was 19 millimeters. I'm going to go ahead and create another measuring cube here just for that really quick and do 19 millimeters. Bring this over. Do my vertex snapping, and yeah, we have 19 millimeters here, but it's a little wider than that now. So I'm going to grab that piece and not make it look so bulky. And I like the way that looks. I'm going to do the same for this here. Grab this piece and bring it down. All right, so those are now a legitimate 19 millimeters. I can go ahead and delete this and this. And I think we duplicated in Z, but I'll double check here. Yep, so this should be ready to go there. And this is in X, so I'm gonna do that. -1 in X, put that back to where it needs to be at 1. Now it's actually looking a lot better. I'm going to hide that measuring cube for a minute. All right, I'm really liking the way this looks. This actually looks a lot better now that it's the correct measurement. And we're going to now move on towards the center cylindrical bar. All right, guys, that was the second part of the 3D modeling for the Stealth TV tray. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, peace, love, and joy.